Welcome back to the Crypto Mavericks podcast. I'll tell you what, we have a great guest here today. Really excited to chat with Kyle. He's the CEO, he's the co-founder of Pinata, and they're a crypto file storage company, and they're solving a lot of real-world issues we run into every day in Web3. We're going to chat with Kyle. Really appreciate you jumping on, man.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So it's I don't even know where to start, really. I guess we'll start with a leading question I always have for everyone, but would love to know your background and how did you get into Web3 and then into file storage?
Yeah, so I always eventually wanted to start a company. So starting Pinata came very naturally. But before I started Pinata, I was at a startup and I got into crypto like many with Bitcoin. So this would have been about 2015. Bought it on Coinbase and then was on Reddit. Started reading about smart contracts and this thing called Ethereum, and got into Ethereum in 2016, and that started my kind of deep dive into crypto. By 2017, I decided, hey, I'm just going to quit my job and jump into crypto full time. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know, what company I was going to create, but I knew I wanted to create a company. I didn't necessarily want to just be like a holder or a trader of crypto. I actually wanted to be in the industry and start something. So when I quit my job, went around, went to hackathons. I'm non-technical, but I knew, especially back then, I wanted to know the technology at a much deeper level. Was going to hackathons, and I was just like the typical business guy doing, PowerPoints for the dev team that was actually building, and just learned a lot. And then from that, I was able to meet my co-founder here in Omaha. Actually, I'm based in Omaha, Nebraska. I met him by starting the crypto meetup group in town. Grew to like 500 people. He was one of the first people to reach out to me. I was like, hey, you should go to these hackathons with me. We went to hackathons. We ended up starting a blockchain consulting company to start. And so it was like through that consulting and then the hackathons that we were able to run into the problem that eventually became Pinata.
Awesome background. Love that. You're truly a man of the people. You didn't want to just hodl your Bitcoin and your crypto.
Yeah.
You wanted to jump in and prove all of Web3. Joe and I could relate. It's a fun industry to work in, obviously, but we see our fair share of ups and downs. Let's jump in. Let's talk about Pinata. What's the problem we're trying to solve? What's Pinata? What's the gap compared to like Filecoin and those existing platforms? How's that differentiate what you're doing at Pinata?
Yeah, for sure. So we call ourselves crypto file storage versus decentralized file storage, and I think there's a pretty big nuance there. With crypto file storage, we're trying to build file storage specifically for crypto projects, and so that means that we're building tools and infrastructure that make it easier for tokens and blockchains at the end of the day to manage their files the way that they need to be able to manage them. A great use case for this is obviously NFTs. Especially during the boom, but even today, being able to serve files fast and being able to do it based on the individual token itself is really, really important. Whereas with decentralized file storage, it's maximally obviously focused on ensuring that the tokens or the files are decentralized, meaning they're spread out everywhere and they can't necessarily be taken down. And that's kind of like a stated preference, but the revealed preference is, hey, like we have files behind these NFTs. We need to serve them at scale. We're moving petabytes of data per month. How do we do that? And Pinata is really, really good at that. The way that we started was in 2018 when we launched Pinata. Storing data on chain was really, really expensive. So if you store a gigabyte on Ethereum, it's going to cost millions of dollars. So you want to like minimize the amount of data you're actually storing on chain and then point to it off chain. We were using this protocol called IPFS, which is like similar to Filecoin and they're related in some ways. But at the time, it wasn't very fast, wasn't very stable. So we launched Pinata with the idea of like, let's just make IPFS as fast and stable as possible and provide crypto file storage for At the time, it was just blockchain generally. NFTs weren't really a thing yet in 2018, but we knew that NFTs were going to be a big thing and was the market that we would probably have success in. But it took at least 2 years, living in my parents' basement trying to make it work before NFTs took off, and then finally Pinata had product market fit.
I I have a question for our listeners and even myself, being in this industry for a while. IPFS, high level, how does it work? It's peer based, right? How do you scale that? When I hear peer based, I'm thinking in my house, utilizing my Mac. You're somehow pinging my desktop. Can you
Yep.
explain that to us?
Yeah, so IPFS, or the Interplanetary File System, which is the protocol we run on, it is a peer-to-peer based system. In the old days, it would be similar to BitTorrent, and it kind of uses some of the same technology underneath. However, the reason that we use it is because it has this concept called content identifiers, or CIDs. And so when you upload files to IPFS, it generates this unique CID, or this unique identifier for every single file that's uploaded. And the reason that's important is the way traditional file storage works is when you upload files, you can change the underlying file infinitely, and you basically have no ability to know that it was changed. And so when you're dealing with blockchain, that doesn't work, right? So if you're using this blockchain out there, and then you're pointing to data or files sitting off chain, and you can constantly swap out what those files are, then using the blockchain itself isn't telling you anything, because you can change basically reality underneath. With those CIDs, we embed them into the blockchain, and with an NFT, we embed it into that specific token itself, the NFT. And then we have this append-only log of what the file is. And even if the file changed, we can prove that it changed. And it basically provides authenticity, which is where it comes in with NFTs originally, but also just generally speaking, kind of backing out for blockchain data. What it does is it allows a smart contract to trust that the data is what it's supposed to be, right? And so when we have these markets that are being built on blockchain, you need to be able to trust and verify that the underlying data that the smart contract is making decisions on is true. And Pinata, and ultimately IPFS underneath, focuses on that. It's verifiable data versus, there is the peer-to-peer aspect of IPFS, and it is at the end of the day a decentralized protocol, but we really focus in on that content identifier piece to ensure verifiable data.
That's great to know, because in hindsight on BitTorrent, was I watching fake movies? They could have taken the media file for fake songs. I wasn't
Yeah.
downloading if anyone's listening.
Yeah, it's interesting in the sense that, like, when I had all that free time to myself in 2018 to 2020, when nobody was really using Pinata and we hadn't found product market fit, I spent a lot of time on Google Scholar, reading white papers around how IPFS and blockchain interact. And there's like hundreds of thousands of these papers, and a lot of them back in 2018 were talking about AI and blockchain. And at the time, for me, like, obviously I knew what AI was, but it wasn't very real. The concepts they were talking about. But now that we're getting into AI being dominant, and it can create content on the fly, now it's becoming extremely relevant on, okay, do I have proof of reality? Is this content real? Do I know where it came from? Do I know what device it came from? Like, all of these are going to be very, very important as AI DDoSes every system known to man, right? If we can generate false data, or even if it's not false, but just like AI generated data at scale, we need to know where it comes from. We need to know if it's legitimate or not. And the way that we're going to do that is with blockchain and IPFS together. And that's kind of like the big underlying like direction I'm going with Pinata. And I believe where blockchain is going. It's just kind of like NFTs were this toy market almost, kind of showing it, right? It's like, hey, I want to know that image behind this NFT is real, and I want to know where it came from. The same thing is going to happen with AI. It's just going to be at like an infinite scale versus just 10,000 PFPs or whatever.
I have two comments about what you said there. Some really great information. I guess the first one would be with just the use case with NFTs. You know, we
Yep.
saw this recently with good old Clone X. There was a tweet where I think I have it up here from you. Somebody tweeted, imagine spending 1.25 million on a rare NFT, come back 3 years later, and the image is just gone. And I
Yep.
was like, and I know they kind of fixed that. And then you wrote back, the problem is solved. Use Pinata Cloud.
Yep.
I love it. And that's like, I'm no cryptophile expert, but that makes a lot of sense to me when you talk about something stored on chain or not on chain and the real world use case. So, first part of this question is I'd love to know a little bit about the real world use case of Pinata, just like dumb it down for me. And then the second part of this is this whole AI world that we're running to with like deep fakes
Yep.
and misinformation. And you said that's a direction you're really leaning into, and I think that's the great direction because that's with content and information that's becoming increasingly a thing. And I think about
Yep.
it constantly, like those deepfakes. Like every video I see now, I'm like, is this crap real? Is this a
Yep.
real video of this shark swimming in the streets of New Jersey? Like it looks real. Can I
Yeah.
believe this right now? So would love to kind of two-part question there. Love to know about the real world applications and talked about the NFTs, and then just elaborate more about this whole crazy AI world.
Yeah. So, like I said, our first use case and where we finally found product market fit was in early 2020 when NFTs started to slowly take off before they really ramped up in 2021 and 2022. And at the end of the day, these NFT minting platforms or projects needed a place to store their data, and Pinata was there for them. And what they would do is upload, whether it's images, videos, whatever the file is underneath, doesn't matter. We can handle all types of files, from little tiny files to large files. And so these NFT platforms or projects were uploading their images and videos and music and whatever to Pinata and then attaching it to the NFT itself. And so that was the first use case for us, and we powered and still do today a significant portion of the market. So, we power OpenSea, we power Magic Eden, we power like a long tail of NFT marketplaces underneath that, as well as, as meme coins became a thing, we power Pump.Fun. And so when you're interacting with images or videos on these marketplaces, or just interacting with your NFT or meme coin, there's a high probability and a high likelihood that you're actually interacting with Pinata underneath, and we're powering that content. And so what's great about that is the underlying user doesn't know this, but there is a basically tracking that is happening where it's like, hey, we can verify and prove that image is what it's supposed to be with the NFT. And all we have to do now as we move into the future and dovetail this into things like AI is just continue to kind of build from that, where we know, okay, this developer launched this content, and we can prove it came from them. We can prove even if they added AI or whatever, changed it a little bit, that they meant to do that, and that they were trying to do that. Right? We're not solving for is this AI or not per se, because people can use AI to generate
Yeah.
stuff. But we're trying to say yes, this was supposed to be AI, or no, it wasn't, and just have that verifiability all the way through the chain. And it's actually a very kind of technical and complex problem, but the way that we think about it is we want a crypto wallet on every single device. So it needs to be on your phone, it needs to be on your laptop, it needs to be on every server in the cloud. And if we have these crypto wallets everywhere, we can then sign all of that content and say, hey, it came from this device that is attached to this person, and they wanted to do XYZ with this content, and have that basically, like, I think of it like a supply chain of files or supply chain of data underneath. And if you have that at scale, then you can verify whether or not that shark in New Jersey was real or not. And again, to me, NFTs was like a very simplistic kind of example of this, but it has as the space has grown and as these problems become more and more acute with AI, it showed what the future is going to look like, I believe, at the end of the day.
With the Clone X, I have one right there. Well, I had one. On chain has been more popular of Bitcoin, as we've seen. You mentioned on coin's very, really expensive. Is there a world where on chain, on L2s is going to be significantly better? Is that something that you've seen at all?
So with blockchains, no matter what, storing data on chain is always just going to be too expensive. And people are going to optimize towards storing off chain and then pointing to on chain. And so a product like Pinata is always going to have a place. Now, there are examples where like maybe you want to mint something on chain, but at the end of the day, that's going to cost, again, a lot of money. And those are kind of, to me, those are like edge cases. The real use cases of minting on chain, people are going to optimize towards the lowest cost. They're going to optimize towards speed. And so we always strive for that and want to provide redundancy and decentralization and all of those things. But again, there's a reality of like, okay, you want maybe you want decentralization, but you don't want to pay $50 to watch a 2-second video, right? Those things are always at odds, and we're trying to always kind of balance that. And so we have examples of Bitcoin using us. We have Ethereum using us. We have Solana using us. Every blockchain can use us underneath, and we provide the same value. And then with L2s, they're going to still run into the same problems because there's a technical reality, which is putting all the data on chain just becomes unwieldy, and again, it continues to be expensive. So no matter what, this problem is always going to exist, and it's always going to be a balancing act. But I would say at scale, if everything's being kind of like printed on chain or pointed to on chain, it's always going to be the majority of it's going to be sitting off chain in some way or another.
Can anyone use the Pinata tools right now? How's that kind of look for like a small dev team or just a solo dev trying to build?
Yeah, for sure. So they can go and sign up at pinata.cloud. We have easy APIs for them to use, and they can integrate us into their applications. Super easy. We have a really strong self-serve funnel where we have tons of blogs and content talking about how to build, whether it's NFTs or meme coins or whatever the newest trend in crypto is. People can use us underneath and sign up for us really easy. We also have an interface that's more like Dropbox. So even if you're non-technical, you can use us. That's not our core user. That's not our main person that we sell to, but you can go in there and upload content to Pinata and benefit from the underlying things that we do. And then it scales all the way up to large startups and enterprises such as OpenSea and Pump.Fun and Magic Eden and those things. So we can go all the way from you're a free user storing a couple gigabytes of data all the way to petabytes of data per month for enterprise users.
Awesome stuff. The next question I had for you, I'm really curious because you've pivoted nicely with how things have evolved. Like NFTs in 2021. Now you're talking Solana meme coins in the meme coin world. What are some like emerging markets, and what comes to mind for me is like gaming, maybe like healthcare. Just curious about your thoughts for the future there.
Yeah. So from our perspective, we think that what NFTs are and what meme coins are is just like the early days of any use case that's going to come. Because really, it's just like, okay, we're tokenizing files and we're tokenizing data. If you abstract out of like artwork or 10K PFPs or meme coins, that's really what we're doing. And this is a fundamental change in how we're going to do computing. It's not just going to be cloud. It's blockchain plus blockchain plus AI plus IoT or DePIN in the decentralized world, right? And so we're going to have this kind of collision of blockchain and crypto meeting AI with devices themselves. And that's what I'm excited about. What it's going to look like exactly, I'm not like super sure because when I first jumped into crypto and wrote my first blog about NFTs in 2017, I did not imagine what ultimately ended up coming. But there is going to be this huge collision, and what that's going to look like could be something like, hey, we need video content to train robots. And a really interesting way to do that is let's create this video content, upload it to NFTs, and then an AI LLM can come in and train on it and pay you appropriately, right? Like those are the types of things that I think is ultimately coming. If AI has this huge need and consumption of data, original data, NFTs could be a great use case for that, or meme coins can be a great case for that too. It's just going to take like the day traders of NFTs and meme coins are going to be like AI agents going out and like buying content so that they can train on it, or buy content so that they can recommend it to you, right? So how does ChatGPT start getting new content and recommending it to you? It's to me, it's going to look very similar to what NFT marketplaces look like.
I have a lot of questions. I can't believe this is such an interesting conversation with cloud services. Well, I wouldn't say cloud, right? That's undermining it. How does this compare to, I wouldn't say box, but is it all AWS? No, how does it look on the back end? Are you out there building, storage for yourself? How does that look like?
Yeah, so we run IPFS in cloud services across multiple different cloud providers. And then at the end of the day, what's cool about IPFS is it can run on device. And so you can have content sitting on, let's say it's on your phone. You can have an IPFS node running on device, and then that can connect to our nodes that are running in the cloud. And so what we're trying to do is push all the way out to the edge as far as possible and get nodes and, again, crypto wallets on every single device. And if we do that, we then have verifiable files, verifiable data from creation ultimately to consumption, which is what we're trying to do. Whereas in today's cloud, that's not how it works at all. They have basically no verification of where files are coming from. And even if it's generated in the cloud, they still don't have verification of this. And so that's our goal. Is we want from creation to consumption of the file, we have basically perfect insight or a perfect supply chain for people, so that they can trust ultimately what that data is underneath. And so cloud services today was like a good pivot from the old desktops in the 90s and early 2000s, and then ultimately went to this cloud model with AWS and all the other providers. I think what's happening now is just the next iteration of that, which is, okay, we need to decentralize out of these cloud services. It doesn't mean they're going away. It just means that we need to go back to the device. And you'll hear this kind of talking points related to AI where they'll talk about, hey, the LLM or the AI model needs to run on the device, right? And so we basically need computing properties that can mimic that, and we need verifiability all the way through it. If you're doing ChatGPT in the cloud, that's fine, but when you're doing ChatGPT on your device, we need to know, like, was it hallucinating? Did it give you the right answer? What's actually happening out on your phone or your laptop or wherever you are? How do we prove that? And so that's that to me is actually really, really exciting.
This question is for the nerds there. I don't see this being cost prohibitive for like an individual per se. It's just looking at the pricing. How does DNS work? Is it? I mean, I imagine there's a lot of pinging going on, a lot of verifying going on the chain. That doesn't seem cost heavy at all.
Yeah, no. So at the end of the day, we can verify the content by that CID. So what's interesting is when you pull or you call for the data, let's say, hey, I want a photo. and you call it by that ID, and you can verify what that file is simply because it wouldn't show up if it didn't exist. And if it was something else, it wouldn't have the right ID. And so this is called content addressable data. I won't go down that path, but it's a very fundamentally interesting technology. And so what it also does, it allows you to trust the data itself and not where it's coming from. So one of the things in computing is if you don't know who's running the device, you can't trust it. But with IPFS and the CID concept, you can, because otherwise the data wouldn't be coming. And that completely kind of changes how, especially in blockchain and crypto, where there's all these adversarial networks and people operating on it. A smart contract or an NFT can say, hey, I want this file, give it to me. And they can trust it and they don't care at all where it's coming from. And that's the fundamental shift that we're operating on. That again is just super exciting because it allows you to build technology that can run on any device, it can run anywhere, and you don't have to know who's holding it.
Sorry, Brian. Tons of questions. I'm in San Francisco, so it's AI all over here.
Yep.
This is more of a question, not specifically for Pinata, but you're forecasting all this AI, interactions, which definitely I see also a lot of people don't understand that's coming. And one of the hiccups people are talking about mainly is energy, right? United States in specific doesn't have enough energy to compare with China per se. You guys, yep. I believe, are global. That's just kind of like a broad question. What else is hindering us from that adoption specifically with Pinata? Because that will hopefully come fast and furious, but it doesn't seem like we have enough of just energy supply for that.
Yeah. So from my perspective, we are global. We run nodes all over the place. Energy costs for us aren't super expensive, but I do know obviously it's causing a huge issue for AI and where do we come up with all that energy? What I think is interesting, how it kind of relates to us is if there's arbitrage opportunities for cheaper energy, we can move files in that direction over time, and you can basically arbitrage energy with where you store your files. And I think that's very, very interesting. Today that's not really how it works. It's basically all right, here's your data center, and here's how much it costs to store on AWS or whatever. But if you're able to move data and data is a lot more liquid and where it is from a physical, geographical location perspective, you'll be able to be more efficient. And so I do think there's going to be a lot of interesting things where people will start arbitraging and moving files and moving data based on where they can get the cheapest energy. We already do that today. So this is very local to me, but we have data centers in Omaha for both Google and Facebook and maybe somebody else. But they're here because they can get a pretty cheap energy deal or good energy deal. And they try to arbitrage that, but when it's billions of dollars and it requires 5 years of construction, that's very difficult for most people to interact with. But if you can have smaller data centers or smaller servers everywhere and you can arbitrage it, that becomes pretty interesting.
Nice. I have one last fun question, Brian. For me, where did the name Pinata come from? I know what it means personally, but how does it relate?
So the consulting company we had was very on the nose. It was called Block Era. And I was I don't want a name for our next company to be so on the nose, just because I knew just from the year or two of doing that the technology was going to change very, very quickly, and crypto was going to change rapidly over time. And so I wanted an abstract name for this next company. And obviously Apple is the classic. And so I was looking for an abstract object similar to Apple versus IBM or something. But I did want to, I wanted to like have an ode to the technology that we were building on. And so when you store data on IPFS, you don't actually store it. You do what's called pinning, or you pin the data. And so for like a week, again, I had a lot more time back then. For a week, I was just sitting there thinking about names and playing around with pin, and there was pinball and pinwheel and things like that. And eventually ended up on Pinata. And obviously we wanted to be colorful too, because back then crypto was like extremely kind of like dark, and wasn't like a lot of fun. It was very serious. And so like Pinata just fit perfectly because we could reference pinning content on IPFS, and then it was fun and colorful, and we could just do a lot with it.
Nice. I love it. I'm sure you get mistaken for an NFT project. And you're like, no, we're a real company.
Yeah, we have real monthly recurring revenue underneath, and but the funnest part about the name is like people are always obviously they have great memories related to pinatas, and they think it's super fun. I've had people try to buy my hat off my head. I'm like, no, I have more. I'll just give it to you. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's always cool to see people smile when they see Pinata.
Yeah, it's a great name, man. That was one of the first things that stuck out to me before the interview. I honestly, it was actually on my list of questions. So appreciate you sharing that. It's makes a lot of sense. I want to give you an opportunity. We're pretty much at time, but I want to give an opportunity for you to give a shout out to anybody that wants to learn more about Pinata, maybe find you and harass you on the internet. Just give you a moment for a shout out.
Yeah, for sure. So you can find Pinata at pinata.cloud, and obviously go on the website and check it out. Otherwise, we're Pinata Cloud on X, and then I mostly hang out on Farcaster. I'm not on X very much anymore, but yeah, I'm a lot cooler on Farcaster. So you can find me as Kyle Tut, KYLETUT on Farcaster, or really any of the other platforms out there.
All right, we'll make sure to put those links down below. Really appreciate you jumping on, Kyle. It was a lot of fun. We're talking crypto file storage, and to be honest with you, I learned a ton. So really appreciate you jumping on today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.